Welcome back to yet another video on HTML and CSS. So HTML and CSS are basically markup languages used in web developments. Yeah, so like each and every web on that you see on the internet is created by HTML and CSS, and these software developers use the HTML and CSS together in JavaScript and PHP, yeah, to work in coordination to put the website on the internet. Uh, so let's start off in this video. Now, this video I'm going to show you on HTML and CSS, the basics of HTML and CSS. So now every website has two parts or sections. So a front end and a back end. So the front end is the part you see in your browser and interact with, consisting of all the visual aspects that you see on the web. So the back end is the part that powers the front end. So the back end is usually PHP and JavaScript is usually used for the back end. So the back end powers the front end. It's mainly about storing data and databases and providing it to the front end. So web development job fall under three main categories, namely as I've said, the front end, which is consisting of the visual aspects that we see, and the back end, which contains the data and the database that powers it and supplies to the front end. So and then there's an overall full stack development, which consists of both the front end and the back end. So front end developers use HTML and CSS and JavaScript. So I'm going to take you in front end development, which will use HTML and CSS, and also JavaScript is also used in front end development. So HTML and CSS are not programming languages, but JavaScript is. So expect a video on JavaScript soon. So be sure to be available on so that you don't miss out on the JavaScript, so that you'll be better at front end developing. Now back in our video, so HTML is a markup language, whereas CSS is a styling language. So like HTML, we define the structure of the website, whereas the CSS, we use it for styling our web page. So every web page you see on the internet is built based on three languages. So the better you get good at these languages, the better you will be at the front end development. And these three languages, I've seen that you have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So HTML and CSS and JavaScript are for the front end development. So your front end development journey starts with HTML and CSS. So you should at least spend 3 to 4 hours coding and studying daily to be better. It may take at least a month. So before we go depth into HTML and CSS, I'll take you through the historical background of HTML and CSS. So HTML started way back in the 19s. Yeah, the most widely used version through the 2000 was HTML 4.01, which became an official standard in December 1999. So most pages on the web today were built using the HTML 4.01. So today I'm going to take you through the HTML5, which has been popular over the recent years and widely supported by browsers and other web-enabled devices, here like the tablets, your computer. So CSS on the other hand was created by Hagon Lai, who was considered as the father of CSS because he provided a solution that many HTML programmers were facing. So CSS was offered as the web styling language to make it more appealing, and it was the solution that most of the HTML users were looking for at that time to style their web pages. So I hope you have understood the brief history of HTML and CSS. Now, before we start, I want you to get a better understanding of HTML and CSS. I want you to imagine of a house. So for the construction and laying the structure of the house, we'll use HTML and CSS for basically laying the structure. And we'll imagine of CSS as styling the house. For instance, painting it, yeah, for it to look more appealing to the eye. So and JavaScript for the functionality. For example, if we press a button for the lift, what do we want the lift to do? So it's based on those three, and I want to in this video I want you to be thinking in that perspective of a building. Yeah, for HTML for styling, HTML for laying the structure, and CSS for styling. Sorry. So before we begin, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe as we upload new tech videos every time. So let's jump into the video and install a couple of extensions. So for the extensions that we need, will come to the extension, but first of all, make sure to create a folder and name it as HTML and CSS, and open it in your VS Code. So today I'll be using VS Code, but you can use any other code editor that you like. So I'm using VS Code today. So we'll come to the extensions panel, then you search for prettier. You search for prettier code formatter. So prettier is a code formatter. Yeah, you can see it has over 20 million downloads. So, and install this, I had already installed mine. So after that, we come and install another extension. We'll call it live server. So live server. So as you can see the live server here. Sorry. So we can install the live server. So you can come and install the live server, and you see it's has almost over 20 million downloads. So you can come and download this couple of extensions. So before we start, so basically, as I've told you that after learning these languages, then you need to learn JavaScript, as I said earlier. So there's a JavaScript series coming soon, so be sure to stick around and don't miss out on the JavaScript series. So JavaScript will probably take a month or so, but you want to learn everything about JavaScript, but you will have to take more time and study and practice so that you can be a better at JavaScript. So the next thing that we go into, we go to frameworks. So building often includes repetitive tasks. That's where libraries and frameworks come in. A framework comes with a lot of code that you can reuse, so they help us get the job done much faster. That's why a lot of companies use these frameworks like React, Angular, and Vue. So learning frameworks will take about 1 to 2 months. Yeah, but you want to know everything, but you have to take, if you are determined, you have to take your time and you learn these things at a faster rate. So the next thing, we go to version control system. So we use a version control system to track our project history. So they include Git and Mercurial and so on, but I highly recommend Git, which is more popular and often used by software companies. So it takes about 2 weeks. So these are the essential skills that one will need for you to be a better front-end developer. So just those are the essential things. So you just follow the steps and learn everything that I've shown you today, and you'll be better at this. And I'll be posting videos on about these essential places that I've told you on frameworks and version control. So uh, so back in VS Code, so let's like we have created our folder. So let me just close this. So we need to create a file. So and this file will name it as index.html. So you can either use HTML or HTML. Either way, it's no problem. So I'll use HTML. So I've created my first. So I created the folder here, and then I'll need you to open this. Then you can control the Explorer panel. You can press Control B or Command and B on Mac. So for you to start off, for you to start writing our code, our HTML code, so we should start with an exclamation mark. Sorry, we should start with a left angular bracket. Then you can see VS Code is giving us this, so we can start with then we write, press an exclamation mark and then press tab or enter. So you'll see that it has created the doctype HTML. So one thing we have to know about HTML is that it is not case sensitive. So even if you write this in lowercase, so doctype, so there's no problem, but I prefer you writing this one in uppercase, so doctype. So after doing that, now we go to the next line and start by writing the, so here after we have done that, we now start. Now in the first line of our code, this one is called the doctype declaration. So this tells the browser that this is an HTML5 document. So with this line of code, we can tell browsers that it's an HTML5 document. So this line of code is called the doctype declaration. Now, right after that, we need to use our HTML elements to define the structure of our web page. So the first element we'll use is the HTML element. So after the doctype declaration, so we type HTML, whether you can use lowercase or uppercase. As I've told you that HTML and CSS, it's not case sensitive. So then press enter. So after this, you just press enter to widen them. So after this, so as you can see, what we have here on the top, let me just bring it simpler. So what we have here on the left, we called it the opening tag, and what we have here on the left, here this one, it's called the opening tag, and what we have here on the right is called the closing tag. Now here we'll add additional elements. So the additional elements that we'll add after the HTML are the head and body. So head, we type head, then after head we type body. So in the head section, or the head element, we use it to give browsers information about this page. So for example, you can use the title element to specify the title of the page that appears on the browsers. So we can use on the head section, we can use the title. So you can just open up, you can type title. So you don't have to memorize all the angular brackets. Just type title and VS Code will get the job done for you. So want to create a title for our web page. Like when you go to Chrome, you'll see the name that appears over here. Yeah, the name that appears over here. So we just come back here and type, let's say that company.com. So this is then the name that will appear when we open our web page. So before we start, let's left click somewhere, and after you have left click somewhere, you can go to scroll down up to where it tells you that open live server, and we have a couple of shortcuts. So I'm using Linux, or Linux or Windows, you can press a combination of Alt and L, and then you also press Alt plus O to open the live server. So now I'll just open it. So after doing that, we'll wait for it to open and you can see it has opened our web page. So you can see the title over here. So now look at the URL. If you can see the URL, we have the 127.0.0.1. So this is what I'm talking about. So this represents the local computer and it's globally known. So if tell anybody 127.0.0.1, he'll know that, definitely know that that represents the local computer. So after that, then we have the semicolon. As you can see, we have the full colon, sorry. Then we have, after this, we have a number, like you can see mine is 5500. So this one is the port number on which our web server is listening. So our web server is waiting for HTTP request on this port. Then after that we have a slash, then we have the index.html. So uh, then after the forward slash, we have the name of our file that we had created earlier. Now I'm going to show you how to format our code. So back in VS Code, so I'm going to show you how to format our code using the Prettier plugin that we had installed earlier. So one thing we need to know about browsers is that they ignore white spaces in HTML and CSS. For example, I can put all these elements in one line like this. I can put all these elements in one line, and everything will still work correctly, as you can see. So HTML and CSS ignores that. Browsers do not care how we format our code, but formatting is very important when it comes to reading and maintaining code. So for our code to be beautiful and perfectly formatted as an article, we need to use a code formatter, and in this case we'll use the Prettier plugin. So with Prettier, we can format our code in a consistent fashion. This is super important when you are part of a team, because different people have different ways of formatting and code. So we use the Prettier. So this one will prevent the bugs that arises when you are working as a group, as you know. So, but if everyone of the team uses the Prettier plugin, the code would be consistently formatted. So let me show you how to use Prettier. So on the top, you go to view, uh, and then select the command palette. So there's a shortcut which is Control Shift and P on Linux, and on Windows it's the same. So you can press command palette, and here search for format document. So we can see format document. So we are getting these messages because it tells us there are multiple formatters for HTML files. Select a default formatter to continue. So we'll come to for configure. So we have the HTML language features and the Prettier code formatter. So VS Code comes with an inbuilt code formatter for HTML files. So we are going to use Prettier code formatter. So as you can see, it has formatted everything. Now it looks beautiful. So we now need to configure VS Code to automatically be formatting our code automatically. We don't have to go through the process again. So we want that the moment we save the changes, we want that on the moment that we save the changes, um, Prettier automatically formats our code. So on the top, we have to go to our settings. So we can go to settings here, and then setting. So on the settings, the entry box, you can look for format on save. So after looking for format on save, then you can enable this such that whenever we save our file, the Prettier will automatically format our code. So now every time we save the changes, the code will be automatically formatted for us. So let me show you a couple of tricks that you can do. So after writing in the head section, now we have given the title, and we have given our title as the company name, and as you can see, so we can save. As you can see, our HTML web page is currently empty. So we want to add a couple of sections in our web page. So on the body, is where we place the elements that want to be in our web page, and on the head section we give additional info about the web page. So on the body, we want to add we use like, let me add my image. So to add an image, we use the img element. So type img, then press enter. So the src stands for source, and as we can hover it and see the tooltip says that the image URL, this attribute is mandatory for the img element. On browsers supporting src set, src is treated like a candidate image with a pixel density description of 1x. So all that, and then we have the alt. So this attributes defines an alternative text description of the image. So so I'll come and get back to this. So let me just delete that. So currently our folder has no image, so let me add an image. So let me bring the explorer panel. So let me add a couple image on our folder. So I have an icon for my YouTube channel, so I'll just drag this and drop it here. So as you can see, the icon photo has come up. So let me create a folder for this. So I'll create a new folder and name it as images. So after that, let me just take this one and drag it here. Move. So that's so in the src, so that here we provide the location of the image in our laptop or pc. So so what you have to do, it is currently in the images folder. So I'll just type images now // then VS Code is suggesting so icon photo. So after that, we need to add some text. So we use the P for adding some text. So P stands for a paragraph. So this one you can add for example, let me add my Twitter handle. So at Tech with Ian. So let me add another text. So like I love HTML. So a simple text like that. So let us save these changes and see what happens to our web page. Let me close the Explorer panel. So when we save this and go back to our, you can see that we have this image that we had placed, but our image, you can see it's occupying the whole viewport. So it is too big. So this is where CSS kicks in. So we can use CSS to style. So back in VS Code, now on the head section, we add another element and call it style. So here in style is where we style our HTML elements or attributes like the image. So you want to style the image. So you write img, then you follow by curly braces. Now we want to reduce the width of our images. You can see that it occupies the whole viewport, of which you don't want. So you type width and then follow by a full colon. Then let's specify like how many pixels. We can specify with the pixels that we want the image to occupy. So you can specify 300 pixels. Let's save this and let's see what happens. So as you can see, the image is reduced and we have this text that we had created earlier. So at Tech with Ian and I love HTML. Now look at this image. I can see the edges are very sharp. So with HTML we can smoothen out the edges. So come back to HTML, then after this, after terminating the line of code, we go to the next one, then we type border radius. We use border radius to smoothen out the edges. So we'll smoothen it to 20 pixels. Come back and you can see that now our image is now smoother. So back to in VS Code, so we can now format add styles to our text. So after this, we jump out of the image, then we type P, which represents our paragraph. Now then we add curly braces, then press enter to create space in between. So the paragraph, we can do some text formatting with it. We can use the font size, the font weight. So we can use the font weight, make it a little bit bold. So when we save these changes and you can see it's a little bit bold. But now we are what if we want to only make this text bold. So that's where it is classes kicks in. So we need to create classes for these attributes. Like for the first image, for the first paragraph, we have to create a class so that we can format it independently. So to create a class, you just come before the after the p, then before the right angular bracket, then you type class, then press enter. So you can give it a class name. So like this, I can give it the tweet.txt. So this one is the class. So this means that back in styling, we can only style these, but not we can style these, but we cannot add the same features. Like this text can have different styling features. So we come back here. So we want to make the first font, like want to make this bold. So you come back to p. Now after p, you put a dot, then twitch.txt, twitch dot so when you save these changes, so as you can see, only the first tweet text there is only bold. So we can create a class for this also. So just here, then you type class, press enter. Now we can give it a, like, we can give it a class and call it a statement. So when we come here, we can also manipulate it differently. So instead of typing p, we can just type dot, then followed by the class name. So statement, then we follow by the curly braces as we do usual. Now we can add some text formatting to this. We can make it italicized. We can change the font family. So we can type font, sorry, so you can use font family, and you can use sans serif, yeah, if you can. So after that, when you save our changes, when you come back here, you see it is different. So what if I don't want this image, this text to be below this? So in the image we can use the float property to push the text to the right of the image. So float, type float, then left. This is where you want the image to be relative to the text. So when you save this, you can see that the text is pushed towards the right. So as you can see, the text is too close and it's at the top. So we can use the, after this we can use the margin property. So margin right, we can put 20 pixels, so we can put 10 pixels. So as you can see there, it has left some space in between the image and the text. So you can come back, and now we want the text to be below, so we come to the text, so we can get rid of this p. So here you can do some text manipulation, so that you can bring the text downwards. So you can use the margin top and set it to like 20 pixels for it to come down. So as you can see, it has left some space, and the image is now pushed to the right. So these are the basics of HTML and CSS, as you can see. So it is very much easy. There are way more text formatting that you can do to text, and the image formatting that you want. Whichever style that you want, you can do it on your text. So the next step is validating web pages. So as we write code, we may run into problems such as if we don't use the right syntax in our code, and due to this, our web pages may not look as expected. So in these situations, we can use a validator to identify the potential errors in our code. So a validator is basically a program that checks for uh, the problems in our code and the things that we should do to our code. So start off, we go to the validator. We can come to Chrome and open a new tab. So we have different validators for HTML and CSS. So I'm going to start with the validator for HTML first. So we have validator. So you can go to uh, Chrome or your favorite browser and type validator.w3.org. So after that, you press enter, and now these are markup validation service, and as you can see, we can validate by URI, so we can use the address, but this one is popularly done if your web page is active, but you can't do that to our web page because our web page is locally hosted, so it is not active yet. So we can validate by file upload or validate by direct import. So can validate by file upload. So after clicking the validate by file upload, you come to choose file, then you come to your file. So we have the index.html, then we open. So then we check uh, so as you can see here is now it's now telling us the errors that are in our air page. So warning, consider adding a lang attribute to the HTML start tag to declare the language of this document. So to solve this problem, we come back to VS Code, and after typing HTML, we need to add the lang attribute, which specifies the language for our web page. So different languages like English, yeah. So we type lang, then type AN for English. So that's one of the problems that we have notified and we are rectifying. So the second thing, so the character encoding was not declared proceeding. So we'll get back to this character encoding. It is usually uh, uh, deployed in the meta elements. So we'll get back to that shortly. So bad value images icon photo for attribute source on an element. Illegal character in parts segment. Space is not allowed. So after that, you can see that the space is not allowed. So we go to error number 4. An image element must have an alt attribute. So the alt attribute that I was telling you about earlier. So for every image, we have to add an alternative statement that will get displayed. For instance, if our image uh, doesn't run or is there's a bug preventing it from being displayed. So as you can see, we can just come to after the src, we can type alt for alternative text, then you can say, like for our image, you can say an icon photo. So if something prevents our image from being displayed, for example, uh, let's use that. So when we come to our web page, can come back to our web page, you can see that now it displays the alternative text icon photo. So that's why it's a good practice to be providing an alternative text for your photo. So as you can see, that's how we can validate HTML code, and it can show you all the problems that you need to rectify. So the next thing that you want to do is to do validating for CSS. So to do validating for CSS, we can use the jigsaw. So head over to jigsaw.w3.org. So jigsaw is one of the value, but you don't have to memorize all these websites. So you can just do an alternative and go to the web and search for CSS Validator. As you can see, you can so CSS Validator, and you can see the jigsaw.org that we are just put up. So you can press on that, and here, so you can also do the same as we did with the validator uh, for for HTML. The same thing we can do by file upload or by direct import. So I'm not going to do by file upload because we have not separated our code first, but in we need to separate we need to be separating our HTML and CSS code, because for instance, when you're building a large website, it can get more complex and you can be confused in the process. So you have to break up the code and put them in separated files. So I'll come here by direct input. So back in VS Code, I'll come and copy all this text. So you have to copy that and you paste it here, so then you can check. So after this it will tell you all that the problem. As you can see, uh, there are no errors found in our CSS code, so that sounds great. So that's how you can validate code. So now in the next session we'll go to HTML and CSS in depth. So in this section, we're going to look to HTML and CSS in depth. But before you do that, I want to show you how to break up both HTML and CSS into different files. So you can bring your Explorer panel, and then you have to create a new file. So let's name it style.css. So make sure to use the CSS after the period to show that it's a CSS file. So we can open up our index.html. Sorry, then you open the style.css. So after opening this, uh, now let's start by, I can show you a simple trick to start with the HTML. So you press Control, you start with an exclamation mark, and then press Tab or Enter, and this HTML boilerplate that has been generated for us. As you can see, here's the Doctype Declaration, the language element, and now here we see the meta elements. So meta elements, like we have the character sets. So character sets, so as you can see, these meta elements give additional info about this page. So the first meta element is for defining the character set. So good question, what is a character set? Well, computers only understand binary, which is in zeros and ones. So using a character set, we can map a character to a numeric value. So one of the most famous character sets are the ASCII, which stands for American Standard Code for Info Interchange, and UTF, so which is the Unicode Transform for format. So yeah, uh, the shortcomings of ASCII is that it only maps letters or words that are in English, but UTF-8 is the most, and it provides binary for like every language that's on the earth. So, and here we have the meta element for giving additional information on the viewport. So the viewport, let me show you. Back on our, so the viewport is the visible area that you see. Like this area is the viewport that you can see. So in your computer you can adjust your viewport, but like you can bring it, you can adjust it, but in some of your gadgets like the phone, you cannot adjust it that easily. So that's why you have to give the information here. As you can see, the name is the viewer, then the content is the width, device, like device width. If it is 2 inches, yeah, it will give you that. So we can add some meta elements here, like we can, if you type meta, then you can see the meta elements that are possibly there. So you can give the keyword. So the keyword elements here are they were heavily used by webs for search engine optimization, so like keywords. So here, like, we can give some keywords like tech. uh, so these are some of the keywords that we can provide to these meta elements. So after that, we have another meta elements. So like when you see the meta description, so let me show you what this is. When you go back to your browser and search for instance, you can search for Apple. Now when you type Apple, you can see this: discover the innovative world of Apple and shop everything iPhone, iPhone, iPad, and Mac. Plus, you can discover the innovative world of Apple and shop everything iPhone, iPod, and Mac, plus exposure. So whatever you type on the meta description is what will appear on the browser here. So those are some of uh, the meta elements that are that you can see, and it is good practice to use them because it gives additional information about your web page. So we can come back and give the title as company. So in this section now I'm going to show you on text manipulation. So we can start with the P. So after this, we want to generate some dummy text. So for us to do that, we type lorem, which will generate some dummy text. So if you wanted to generate a certain number of text, like let me say specify 100, and then press enter. So after you save this, when you come back to your browser, you'll see that it has generated all this text in Latin. So look at this. Say that you don't want this to have a page break here, like you want them to stick on the same line. So for us to do that, you come back to your page and search for the word. So if you want to pull up the search, you press Ctrl plus F, and then here let's come and search for the word. So you can just copy that word, and when you come back here, you paste it there, then it will search for you. So you don't want this word and this word to be separated. So after that, you can use a non-broken space. So just after this, you type sign for, and then you type NBSP, which stands for non-broken space, and then you use a full colon. So let me terminate this line. Use a semicolon to terminate this. So when you save these changes, you can see that on your browser it has not separated, as you can see. So that's how we can manipulate text. So the other thing that I wanted to show you is that how we can break up the HTML and CSS files. So you can come to Control B, your Explorer panel, and create a file as I had created earlier. So open that file. Now on index.html, in our HTML file, we can come after the title. Then after this, we can use the link element. So we type link. So after typing link at the href, now we'll provide the file for that we want to link the CSS file. So after this, we write style.css, as you can see, style.css. So the CSS file is linked to the HTML file. So whatever we do in CSS, we have linked to the HTML. So it's now okay. So the next session, we are going to talk about headings. So headings are popular in HTML, and we have 6 types of heading from the hierarchy. So we have the the first heading, which is abbreviated as H1, which is the most important, and you have to use it in HTML. So let me delete this text first. So in the body section, so we have 6 HTML heads. So for the first HTML H1, we use it is the most important heading in our web page. So we have H1 up to H6, which it falls in that hierarchy. Right, that H1 is the most important and H6 is the least important. But some developers do use H6 when they want to make the heading to be smaller. But we can make the heading to be smaller using the CSS, because we use CSS for styling but not HTML. So for us to do that, I can show you some of the couple of headings. So we have H1. So these are the possible heads that we have. So let me just add some text here. Let me show you how the headings appear on our web page. So back on our, as you can see, the headings. So the first heading is the most important heading, while the last heading is the least important heading. So when you're working with the HTML web pages, you can use the heading elements. So we have the first heading to the first heading to the sixth heading, which they fall in that hierarchy. The first heading is the most important heading, and the sixth heading is the least important heading. So after this, I hope you have understood headings and you can use them in your HTML workings. So the next thing we are going to look in this section is hyperlinks. So hyperlinks are just links, so you can click on them and jump to another document. So when you move over a link, the mouse arrow will turn into a little hand. So links must not be necessarily be text, but they can be an image or any other HTML element. So so for us to start off with the hyperlinks, we have to use the A, so the anchor tag. So A, then press enter. So as you can see, it has created this, and we have the href. So the HTML tag A, it defines a hyperlink. So you can type a tag and press enter. So the most important attribute of the A element is the href attribute, which indicates the link's destination. So this one is the most important, as indicates the link's destination. So let me create another folder in our Explorer panel and call it about index. So we have created a folder. So in this href, so let me close that. In this href, we can link it to the folder that we have just created. So back in our folder, let us create a file and then call it about.html. So about.html, it is now folder in about. So let me just rename this as companies. So let me rename it as companies, so to have a more clear description. So in the companies folder, we have the about.html. So for us to start off with this, we can link this to the company's index.html. So to start, so we have to provide the location of the folder, which will start by naming the folder that the file is. So we'll start by typing company, then after that we'll go to the about.html. So whenever we click this hyperlink, it will certainly take us to about.html. So let me provide some text that the reader see, that the reader will be able to see. So when we type this, like click me, so this is the link text that the reader will be able to see, and when he clicks it, it will take him to the destination that he wants. So back in our control, in our explorer panel, at the companies, you can open the about.html and print some dummy text. So in about, you can use the play, and we can use the lorem to generate some dummy text. So you can use lorem. We can use specify the number of words that we want, so 50. So it will generate 50 words. So you can save that and come back to index.html and save that also. So when we go to our web page in Chrome, as when we click this, it will suddenly take us to this, and our Google translates try wants to translate. So let's see what it has. So it has translated everything. So this is how you can work with hyperlinks, but this one is called a relative URL. I'll be talking to you about URLs in a bit. So the next thing we want to do is how to use the target attribute, like when we don't want uh, the hyperlink to be opening on the same web page. Like as you have seen that when we click this hyperlink, it opens the text in the same tab. So when we don't run this, we use the target attribute. So after the href, we can use the target. Like we want to specify where we want the hyperlink to open the file that we want it to open. So you can use the target. So for instance, let us say that we want it, like when we click it, it opens another tab. So for us to do that, we'll inside the target, we'll use the blank. So we'll type an underscore and then press blank. So when you use this, it will open the tab, it will open a new tab. So when you save this and come back to our element, so when you click this, sorry, let's restart the live server again. So open with live server, let me cross this. So company.com. So when you click this hyperlink, it takes us to another tab, as you can see. So this is a whole new tab. Yeah, so we can use the blank. So there's a couple of values that you can use. We have the parent value, we have the, yeah, there are a couple of values that I can find on the web on how to use, but this one is usually the best one that we use the target. So don't remember that href is the most important attribute of the hyperlink element, which indicates the link's destination, and the target indicates where we want to open the link. Like this one, I've shown you that we can use the blank to open the link in another tab. So the next thing we can go to is to, so in this section I'm going to show you how to we can also relate to other websites. So like we can open a link in YouTube. So for example, we are going to use the hyperlink as we started, type and then enter. So at the href we can provide a link. So let's head over to Chrome, and for instance here let me search for YouTube. So I'm going to use a link to my YouTube channel. So on the search bar, just search for Tech with Ian. So then I'll come to the share, and you can pick any link. So I can copy my own video link. So let me close this tab. So back in VS Code, you can come to VS Code, and in the href value, you can copy the link that you have extracted. So Control V. So and then you have to add a target value, so as to specify where we want our link to be open. So we want it to open another tab, so you can use the target and then use the underscore blank, so it will open another. So and then in the text we can use the you can use the word text. So after this we can save this, and when you come back to our web page you can click this. So as you can see, it is loading the actual YouTube. So it works. Like you can use a real-time link and link it to your web page, and boom, it works. So it actually opens another the YouTube for you. So you can come back here, and so next up we are going to see how we can link to emails using the hyperlinks. So as usual, we start with the A element. Then after that, now in the href we have to use the mail to. So type mail to, then a full colon, then you can type where you want the email to go. So I can type here, okay, my email. So that's my email, and then in the link text you can type email me. So and you can save these changes. So when we come back to our, let me just close these few tabs, so you can see email me. So if you press that, it will open up my mail client. So as you can see, it has opened up my email client with my email populated. So you can put in the subject and see what happens. So you can type I love HTML, as you can see, and then you can just send. So it is very easy, the progress, and it has sent the message. So it is very easy. You can also use hyperlinks to link to emails, to link to other websites, and also to link to your website. So when it comes to URLs, so we have the absolute and the relative URL. So a relative URL is a link to a page within the same website, as I had shown you earlier, whereas an absolute URL is a full web address. Yeah, so it's like a full address to another web application, you see, and a relative URL is a web address to the link to a page within the file. Yeah, so that's it guys about HTML and CSS. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope by the end of this you'll be able to put everything together and build a beautiful and interactive website. So if you're new here, be sure to subscribe, like and comment on my videos.